All right, let's talk about silent riot, the two most terrifying words you could ever hear together. A silent riot. No, no, that's not normal. That's not natural. That's unnatural. Riots are supposed to be loud, chaotic, and the people are screaming. But a silent riot? That means something is wrong. That means people aren't just mad, they're focused, they're organized, they're plotting. And you should be afraid of that. You ever seen a horror movie where the villain is just standing there staring at you? No music, no sudden movement, just pure, eerie silence. That's the kind of energy a silent riot has. Think about Quiet Riot, the band. They were loud. They had a song it was called Come On, Feel the Noise. And they weren't silent. They were blowing your eardrums out and making you afraid of permanent hearing loss. A silent riot. That's the opposite. That's the kind where people aren't throwing bricks through windows. They're just looking at you and just standing there. No chanting, no yelling, just hundreds of people moving in unison, not saying a word. That's nightmare fuel. At least when people are screaming, you know what they're mad about. But when they're silent, oh, they've already made up their minds. They don't need to yell. They're here to handle business. So yeah, you should fear silent riot because it's like quiet riot, but without the fun, without the music, just pure, unsettling, ear-ringing silence. And that spells doom.
In October, you were on a Zoom call with your colleagues from the New Yorker magazine. Everyone took a break for several minutes, during which time you were caught masturbating on camera. You were subsequently fired from that job after 27 years of working there. And you, since then, have been on leave from CNN. Do I have all that right?
You got it all right. Sad to say.
So the second two, I laughed at, but I want to talk about that first guy.
Oh, he's a freak, dude. He's visited us
Let
before.
me tell you something. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello, Way in the Breach, Thursday nights, Eastern time. Antonella says it right. Too many sick minds. She's in the chat room. And we got a few people joining us as we get started here. Robert's with us. Antonella, we have, I know there was somebody else I wanted to mention. But anyway, but yeah, here's the thing. Joe, now Jasmine Crockett is retarded, by the way. Let's just,
Yes.
throw that out there. Tubin, right? The guy Tubin from where was he? CNN or MSNBC? Why would you even show your face in public, dude? Okay. It is the most embarrassing thing that you did. You need to go hide for like 10 years. You need to go like repent of your idiocy, okay? That you're the smartest guy. Like all these people tell us all the time, Joe, they're smarter than us, right? And you don't know the camera's rolling while you're about to do something that you shouldn't do on camera. Are you being serious? But that first dude, let me tell you something. I'm going to throw it right to you. He's the reason, that guy is the reason why we need a Second Amendment, because he's not joking. Now, he's unhinged, okay? But he's not joking, all right? The people that stand in the corner and watch, you know what I was thinking of while he was talking? I was thinking about all the communists at the time, I guess you would call them Bolshevik revolutionaries, right? That were getting their orders from Lenin, not Stalin. Lenin, the peaceful guy, wasn't so peaceful. And they go out and they just shoot people indiscriminately. They would shoot hookers. They shoot what they call malingerers. They weren't friendly to the revolution. Okay. There are people that are just want to kill, kill, kill. That's that guy. He is a poster boy for protecting our rights to own guns. Because if that guy lets loose, you got to take him down because that guy's evil. He's got an evil intent.
Maybe he'll shoot the guy that was masturbating, dude.
Hey, listen, I'm not advocating that. I'm not advocating that, nor is Joe Rossinello here at the front line with Joe and Joe.
Oh my God, what is wrong?
Listen, what's wrong is that, and this is not in America. Guys like that, we say all the time here on the show, Joe, that there are people in the world who very simply, their worldview is to hate humanity. I believe that it's probably a mental disorder about themselves. I have no medical knowledge to back this up. They hate themselves, ergo they hate humanity. And what do? They'll join any cause that shows a hatred towards humanity. Environmentalism hate. The environmentalist movement does not values trees over human beings. Okay. The animal rights activists, we know that they value a newborn pig over a baby in the womb whose heart is beating. Okay. So we know that he's just a symptom. He's just like you watch a guy like that. You know, there's people that on the here in the world, in government, in Hollywood, in the press. They agree with that guy. They agree with him. In other words, they're focused. They're laser focused on destroying everything good, true, and beautiful. There is a rather large percentage of the world's population that would agree with that guy, Joe.
It's craziness. I like it. I like the head game, though. The hair game, everything. It's good stuff. It's a good look.
Listen, if my wife saw that video, she might be a little bit jealous. She might have to go out and buy some. But let me tell you something. There's a lot of doom and gloom, and there's a lot of hatred and anger going on from the Democrats. Okay, and a lot of doom and gloom. And some of these blue states, Joe, they better watch their butt.
California is projected to lose 3 seats, New York 2, also going to lose a seat, Minnesota, Oregon, Rhode Island, Illinois, all blue states. Who's getting these? Texas, Florida, Idaho, and Utah. I mean, this looks like game over, and the reason why people are voting with their feet is a lot of what your book is about.
Yeah,
taxes and regulation. I certainly been screaming about it forever. I did 3 years with a sign here that said, how long is it going to take me to get my solar hooked up? 3 years. Talking about it on television in this state. You couldn't do it. This state has almost 400,000 regulations. I just put in a new roof because the fire, I thought, oh, let's get a roof that's not going to burn up. 2 inspections. Why are you inspecting my roof? It's my fucking roof. If it falls on me, that's my problem. And we're taxed more than any other state. People are leaving these kind of states for places where they're not, they feel the heavy breath of government on them. It's not that hard for Democrats to understand this, but they seem to be incapable of doing anything about it.
So we poll this. They're leaving on cost of living. That's all part of it. They're leaving because they can't afford homes. And it's a huge, not just political problem, those numbers you just gave. After 2030, if that holds, a Democrat could win every state Kamala Harris won, win Michigan, win Pennsylvania, and I'm just blanking on the third blue wall state, win Michigan, win Pennsylvania, and win Wisconsin, and lose the presidential election, right? The blue wall would no longer be enough for them to win. And you have to take that.
You mean they could win those 3 states and still
lose the presidential? That's how bad it is, right?
Wow.
And that's because they are driving people out, working class families out of the states that they govern, because the cost of living is too high. And the cost of living is too high in part for regulatory reasons, in part for taxes. But the big problem is they just don't have enough of the things people need. Not enough homes, not enough energy, not a government capable of delivering. And they've been treating that as not a real problem. You were talking about your solar sign. California high-speed rail, it's a huge disaster, but nobody's ever done anything about it. If you tried to build it again, it would go the exact same way.
High-speed rail?
Yeah, California's high-speed rail.
I think we first passed it in 2000.
Let's leave it there because we get the point. Joe, I'm going to throw it right over to you.
They've abandoned the working class. Don't listen to me. Look at the metrics. The metrics tell you everything. They have abandoned the working class. That was the meat and potatoes of the Democratic Party. But this is not the Democratic Party of old. And people cannot live in these states. Not to mention the quality of life has gone down. I've heard a number of podcasts talking about California, what he was talking about. If you want to start a business, it's impossible because of the regulation. So what do? You leave. Then let's look at the uber rich. Larry Ellison, the wealthiest man in California, moved to Florida. Joe Rogan moved to Texas. Ben Shapiro took his business and moved to Tennessee. Why would you do business in a state that is not pro-business? You wouldn't do it. It's not practical. But here's what they didn't say, and this is what I want people to pay attention to. Everything I just said is common sense. If you're logical, if you're thinking in a linear fashion, if you're thinking in win-loss, balls and strikes, you come to the very conclusion that Bill Maher just came to. Why can't they do that? And I'm going to tell you why. Because it's their religion, Joe. They're trapped in their religion, and they can't let it go. It's more than a political idea. It's a religion. It is a cult-like, it's cult-like behavior. And that's why they cannot come to the conclusions that Maher just came to, and he's a Democrat.
No, that's right. Look, you're right. Now, Bill Maher, I'm skeptical of Bill Maher only because, conservatives have been saying these things for a long time, and he had a lot of not so nice words to say about those conservatives who were talking about environmentalism being a burden, whether you own a business, whether you're trying to buy a home, and all the regulations they put on you. People complain about taxes. He would curse at them. He would call them nasty names. So my jury's out on Bill Maher. I think he's trying to jump on that kind of like sound good so he doesn't lose a good segment of his audience, or perhaps even gain some. He's trying to sound more libertarian. He's not a libertarian. He's a liberal. Okay. There's a big difference. Okay. So my jury's out, but let's assume for argument's sake, he's being sincere. Right, Bill? Right. This is what we've been saying for a long time. We need you to say it. Now, finally, people are waking up and they're moving out of these states. Okay. They're saying, I'm not living in California. I'm going to go to Arizona. I'm not living in California. I'm going to go to Idaho. I'm going to go to Utah. Absolutely right. I got to put up with this. Jersey, I'm surprised more people aren't moving out of New Jersey yet.
Well, actually, one of the states that gained is North Carolina. That's drawing from New Jersey heavily right now. A lot of people are moving out of New Jersey and moving to North Carolina. Again, the metrics matter. And the metrics are telling you the story. The Democrats have to get out of the spider web. Someone put into the chat, they said it's not a religion, it's a cult. It's cult-like behavior. The issues, you would think that they have a grasp on the issues. The issues have a grasp on them, and they can't get out of the web. They're trapped. And frankly, these ideas are not resonating with regular people. Keep this in mind, Joe. You have 10% of fringe voters on the right and on the left. These are people who drink the Kool-Aid. They're diehards. It's the 80% you have to capture. The person that captures the 80% wins.
Right.
And right now, they're polling at like 26% favorability. Amongst independents, they're polling at 11% favorability. Joe, you cannot win based on those numbers because that's the 80% that you need to win.
Oh, well, listen, I don't know. Look, there's some things going on right now. All right, if you're joining us here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe, remember to share, like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. Help us out a little bit. I'm not going to feel bad when two things happen. As Bill Maher pointed out, okay, you have people leaving. All right, you have now. These are concrete results and consequences of the governments of these states, of Illinois, of New York, of California, where people say, "Yep, I'm done." And by the way, did you hear what the one gentleman said? If you lose a congressional seat, you lose an electoral vote, Joe.
I didn't catch that, but that's significant.
That's what he was. Well, the thing is, you have as many electors as you do congressional representatives. Okay. So if let's say if you Wyoming I think has like one or two congressmen, they have one or two electoral votes. California's got a lot. Obviously, New York's got a lot. So you have those states that are losing their population, ergo losing their tax base. They're losing electoral votes. All right. That's why he said they could win some of these swing states and still lose because they're losing electoral votes to the red states. Okay. And then there's voter ID.
Lastly, sir, we have an executive order for your attention on the very important subject of election integrity. We believe that this executive order is the farthest reaching executive action taken in the history of the Republic to secure our elections. Among numerous other aspects of this executive order, this is going to cut down on illegal immigrants on the voter rolls, ensure that the Department of Homeland Security and the data that they have available is being fully weaponized to ensure that illegal immigrants aren't voting. This will include a citizenship question on the federal voting form for the first time. This executive order instructs the EAC to cut federal funding to states that don't take reasonable steps to secure their election. This calls on the Department of Justice to vigorously prosecute election crimes, particularly in states that we don't believe are in compliance with federal law around election integrity. I could go on and on for a while, sir, but compliance with National Election Day rules, cracking down and investigating and prosecuting foreign interference in our elections, revoking President Biden's Executive Order 14019, which essentially weaponized government to corrupt and pollute our election process. There's a lot in here, but we believe that these are very important steps that we need to be taking as an administration at your direction to ensure that our elections are as secure as they possibly can be.
Okay, you all understand that? Yes. Election fraud, you've heard the term. We'll end it, hopefully. At least this will go a long way toward ending it. There are other steps that we will be taking in the coming weeks, and we think we'll be able to end up getting fair elections. Perhaps some people think I shouldn't be complaining because we won in a landslide, but we got to straighten out our election. This country is
Absolutely. This is really bad if you're a Democrat, especially if you're a Democrat operative, okay, in some of these states that are used to going in. Look, we've said before at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe, I do not believe the Canadian people voted for Justin Trudeau. Don't. I believe the oligarchs pour in money. I think they rig elections. That's what I think they do. I think they're the ones that support the illegal immigrants coming in, giving them voting rights. I don't believe Justin Trudeau was ever really, truly elected. I don't believe these European leaders are elected. I don't think humanity's that crazy to elect these people. All right. And we're about to find out, because America's going to be an example. If Trump gets that through and you have federal oversight, making sure that California and New York and Illinois and New Jersey and all these blue states, making sure they comply, Joe Rossinello, with federal law that's part of that executive order. Not for nothing, Jersey's going red, Joe. Jersey's going red.
Well, Jersey, I mean, they barely
They
won.
are red, is my point.
I mean, the governor won by like less than 1%. And frankly, if that was in place, he probably would have lost, Murphy. But let me just get to the bill itself. Now, it's an executive order, which means it's not a law. That's point number one. Point number two, this is just for federal elections. This is not municipal and state elections. Now, because it's an executive order, what probably is going to happen, because I've already seen some comments, particularly from the ACLU, they're going to sue, which is good, because then it could potentially get up to the Supreme Court and then it becomes legal precedent. That's what we want. But let's look at what is in the executive order for a moment. They're going to basically try to prevent illegals from voting. They don't pay taxes. They shouldn't vote. And that was the plan. That is the only reason why anyone who's thinking would have an issue with that, because every country in the world, even countries that are so far kooky, require ID. No one allows illegal immigrants to vote. Not even the worst of the worst That's point one. But this is where it doesn't go far enough, and I'm disappointed in it. It still permits 70% of our country to vote through the mail. That is a result of Obama's revolution. We went from a country that 30% voted in the mail, which still is too high, to 70%. And we didn't go back. And that should have been in that piece of legislation that or executive order that he signed. And it wasn't. I'm disappointed in that. Those ballots, it's rife for trouble. You go in person, and there's no reason why any person can't do that in America. And if you have a problem with that, I'm going to be honest with you. All you're doing is basically looking for power. You're seeing an advantage, and you're arguing for that advantage to allow illegals to vote. They can't vote. That's why they were allowed in, and it was an absolute and utter crime. It hurt them and it hurt our country because we don't have the infrastructure to take care of them.
Right. No, and let me tell you something. And their tactics too. The tactics of the left when it comes, Joe. If you're joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe, help us out. We got a lot of great clips from you. We're going to be talking about. We're going to continue the conversation on what, especially with the left's view and how they try to sell. The idea that voter requiring ID and things like that are inherently racist. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about teachers and how the oligarchs who are in charge of the public education system in America, and they're why we had to get rid of the Department of Education. We're going to talk about Danielle Smith, and we'll end the show with Chris Cuomo. But Joe, I want you to watch this. I want you to watch this, and all you out there. Watch this clip, and then we'll talk about it when we come back. We'll talk about how the left, how they operate when it comes to selling their view on the whole voter ID issue.
Voter ID laws?
Yeah, they're usually pretty racist, and they're bad.
I think voter ID laws are a way to perpetuate racism.
Would you go as far to say those laws are racist?
For sure.
Do you think it suppresses the African American vote?
Definitely.
Tell us how.
Because they're less likely to have state IDs.
Minority voters are less likely to have the kinds of IDs that have been described or required.
These type of people don't live in areas with easy access to DMVs or other places where they can get identification.
You can always get IDs you do over the internet. Does that also make it difficult for black people in particular?
Yeah, you have to have access to the internet. You have to be able to pay an internet service provider for certain fees.
Do you think that's harder for black people to go online?
Well, I feel like they don't have the knowledge of how it works.
A lot of people have smartphones, but you might not have data.
For most of the communities, they don't really know what is out there just because they're not aware or they're not informed. I also think there's a repression of black voting with how if you're a convicted felon, you're not allowed to vote and everything. And when you look at swing states like Florida, that's a huge population of the African Americans.
Now I'm here in East Harlem to ask black people their thoughts on what you just heard. Do you have ID normally? You carry ID around?
Yes, I have state ID.
Do you carry ID?
Yes, I do.
Do you know any black person who doesn't carry ID?
No. Everyone that I know has an ID. Why would they think we don't have ID?
That's a lie. Why would they say that?
Do you have ID?
Yes.
Because I have my ID and my friends have their ID, so we know what we need to carry around.
Everybody that I know have ID. That's one of the things you need to walk around with New York with, ID.
Do you know any black adult who does not have ID?
No, I don't.
Is it a weird thing to even say that?
Yes, it is.
What is this, some type of trick candy cameras?
I know,
that?
right?
That's the only thing I brought with me.
Those are legit IDs. I heard a lot also that black people can't figure out how to get to the DMV.
Really?
What does that say to you?
I know it's that. It's on 25th Street.
Do you know where the DMV is around you?
It's on 125th Street and 3rd Avenue, I believe.
You know how to get there?
Yeah.
Would you have a problem getting there if you had to get there?
No.
I know these sound like silly questions. You know how to get to the DMV?
Of course.
You know where it is?
Yes.
You can get there?
Uh-huh.
No problem.
No problem.
Just checking.
Okay.
And I also heard a lot that black people, especially poor black people, have no access to the internet, can't figure out how to use the internet.
That's just stupidity, honestly. Everybody has access to the internet. Even a little kid can figure out how to work the internet.
I had access to the internet for years.
You know how to use it properly, right?
Exactly. I do it at work. So, of course, I know how to use it.
Smart.
My kids know how to use it. They all have iPads, iPods, whatever.
Your phone has data? You can actually
Unlimited.
Unlimited data.
I use my phone as a hotspot.
What does that say to you for the people who have this perception of black people?
They're pretty much ignorant. That's what my thought process on.
I just think that's ignorant.
Ignorant.
Ignorant. That's the
Very,
word I hear
very
a lot.
ignorant.
Ignorant.
Very, very ignorant.
Does it sound racist for somebody to say that?
I think it is a little racist because, you know, you're putting people in a category and you have no idea what you're talking about.
Maybe a little bit of racist in it, but like I said, I think it's more stupidity and ignorance.
Judging somebody, like, well, you judging them because they black, saying that they don't got it.
What people are they talking to? Who are these people talking to?
Do you have a problem that if you go to vote and they say, can we please see your ID to make sure you are who you say you are you
Love
cool?
showing my ID.
You got no problem with that?
Nope.
Would you have a problem if when you go to vote, if they say, can we please just see your ID to make sure you are who you say you are? Do you have an issue with that?
No.
Would you have a problem if there was a rule where you have to show your ID in order to vote?
I don't think so. No.
Would you have an issue if there was a rule saying you got to show your ID before you vote?
Nah.
You cool with that?
Yeah.
The most important takeaway from that video. All right, let me say this first before I get into that, the front line with Joe and Joe. Let me say this first. See what you saw right there, Joe? That's real life. Those are real people, okay? And we've said a million times, I've been saying this for years. When you're talking to a liberal elitist people, groups of people, black people, Hispanic people, gay people, all these different, they're abstractions. Poor people. They talk about people in the abstract. They don't know real life situations, stories, people's views. See that reporter there? He goes on the street. He goes up to Harlem, and he talks to actual black people. What do you think about ID? All right, and you saw obviously the response. I love those people. I love the one guy with the eagle on his thing and the bandana, and he turns around and he says, "You're just stupid." You know? But here's the thing. I think my biggest takeaway is the girl who said they don't know how to do it. That to me is I got to get called a racist and a deplorable by people like Hillary Clinton, you, and other conservatives. We have to get called names by the left. That girl's a liberal. She said black people don't know how to get ID. They don't have the knowledge. She said that.
And she's a college student. That was on a college campus.
There's a shock.
That's another friggin' conversation. We could talk an hour about that. But I'll be honest with you. Everyone has ID because you can't function in society without it. You can't have a bank account. You can't have an apartment. You can't have a car. You can't have just about anything. You have to show ID for everything that's basically important in life. It's all about the people who came across the border. That is the only reason why they're fighting it. And forget about those college kids because frankly, that is nothing short of embarrassing. They're supposed to be educated. That was embarrassing. It's sick. And I'm going to be honest with you. Once again, any objective person, do you see the face on some of those people in Harlem with those questions? They're like,
Right.
what are you talking
What
about?
are you talking about?
That is how I perceive so many of these issues. You're just like, what are you talking about?
Right.
It's absurd.
I don't know how to get an ID because I'm black. I wish I was standing there with my wife. I wish you were standing there with your wife. Okay. And for those of you who are joining us at the front line with Joe and Joe, our wives, our sisters, and they're both black. I wish you were standing. I would have said, listen, young lady, where do you go? Columbia? You go to Columbia? Tell my wife she doesn't know how to get an ID. You tell my wife she does, or her family members that they don't know how to, that they don't have the knowledge to use the internet or any other means at their disposal to go and get an ID so that they can vote. Did you see the look on the faces of those black people? It's like that one girl, the big girl, she turns around and said, who said that? Like, who said that? That's just ignorant. And I love it because all those little dweebs and all those little guilty white liberals, which is what they are, they're probably from Westchester. Okay, their mommy and daddy have millions of dollars and don't care that their kids are idiots, right? Remember, that's how they demagogue the issue. That's how Elizabeth Warren and the rest of the Democrat politicians, that's how they demagogue the issue by saying you're against black people. There's something inherently racist about ID laws. No, there's not. You're an American citizen. You go and get ID. And you know who agrees with us on that? All those black people in that clip agree with us on that.
Not only do the people in that interview agree, but if you look, I want everyone to look at who in the world, the countries, require ID. You're going to see a list of people. You're going to see countries like Sierra Leone. Like, you're going to see like countries that you're like, really? And the United States of America is trying to say that you don't have to show ID. And many states that voted in this past presidential election didn't require it. That is absolutely the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of in my entire life. And it's only to facilitate illegals to vote. That's the only reason.
So, but the thing is, you have to take away, and that's why I loved. I forgot his name. He's big on social media. That guy, that reporter. Unfortunately, I forgot his name. You have to take away the propaganda. Like, you have to show videos like that. You have to get out there and talk to real people. You have to broadcast this. We know CNN and MSNBC are never going to do it, but that's why nobody really watches them. All right. That's why we have to make it no. You're not winning this argument. We're not going to allow you to demagogue the issue. We're not going to allow you to call us racist. Every single American citizen who has the right to vote, if you're a citizen, all right, and Donald Trump is making sure that with this this executive order that he signed. And when you go, you got to show ID. Like you said, everybody knows that the argument is actually really, really airtight. You need an ID for everything. You need an ID to vote. Period. That's it, Elizabeth Warren. That's it, Bernie Sanders. You need an ID to vote. For you to suggest it's racist, okay, is a lot of BS. I don't care what some Klansmen did 30, 40, 50 years ago. I don't. I am not a Klansman, nor is Joe Rossinello, and everybody should have an ID if they go and vote. You have to show ID when you go and vote. Period, point blank, period. Throw an exclamation point on the end. Joe, give me a final word on that.
First, Barbara Farley's in the house. Barbara, what's happening?
I love Barbara.
Listen, at the end of the day, there has to be controls around elections, because if there isn't, people will not believe the outcome, whether you're Republican or you're a Democrat. You have to have controls. The one thing he did do about mail-in ballots, they have to be in by election day, which means that you'll know who won that day. I still don't like it. No more mail-in ballots unless you're in the military, unless you're sick, unless you're old, or you're in college. That's it.
If it comes in on time, Joe, I will say that probably is a decent control to say if it's not in on time. See, what they use the paper ballots for is to come in afterwards to see how many votes they need. They come in late and they count them. So I'll take that as at least a first step. I agree with you.
Step, but listen, at the end of the day, paper ballots, ID, it's a bare minimum. It's a bare minimum. If India, the largest democracy in the world, can get 1.5 billion people to come in, not everyone votes, but a lot of people do, and they know the day of, on election day, who won. If they can do it, and probably about 30% of the Indian population is living off the grid, like on the street. So if they can do it, we can do it.
But here's the thing. Given the state of our education system, I don't know, Joe. Do you think?
I'm Kaylee Weichbrot. I'm a mom of 2 in Fairfax County. This is my oldest. And my husband and I have a difficult decision to make this fall, as he is approaching preschool age, and we are faced with the decision of whether or not we are going to put our child in public school system where Fairfax County has decided to move forward with instituting gender studies in elementary school. Despite having done a study group, a focus group in the community to see if parents even wanted this. And when parents said no, the board voted 16-0 and said we're moving forward anyways. This shows clearly that they see parents not as partners, but as an obstacle for their agenda. And I have a really hard time looking at him and going, here, I'm just going to give you over to people who do not want to partner with me in how you're going to be raised. School and education is a huge part of a child's life. And early childhood is supposed to be filled with exploration and creativity and fun, not debating issues that are for adults to handle. These kinds of topics should be introduced sensitively and by parents who are raising their children with their values, not with.
Spot on. That's all I got to say about that. But did you see what she said though? They went ahead and they voted 16-0 against the parents. That's in Virginia, that elected a governor a couple of years ago, a lieutenant governor and an attorney general in a reaction to all this, and they're still doing it. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to throw it right to you, Joe. You know who I blame? I blame us. I blame us because we don't put down what we can and go run for the school board. Largely because we can't. Okay, we can't. But if I had the time and I had the money, or at least enough money where I didn't have to go punch a clock, I go and run for the school board. Get on the school board. Get on the school board. That's what the Jews do. Bill Donahue told us that in New York. They have their kids in private school. They still run for the public school board in their local community. Why? Because they know it spills over. So that's the reason why they're able to get away with this stuff. Because let me tell you something. See, when they do things like that, by the way, see that quiet riot guy in the beginning, okay? They want to do things like kind of quietly. Well, we're just, they're vicious Marxists is what they are. They just kind of sit there and they make their argument. They think they're making their argument. But let me tell you something. They are vicious. They want, by the way, when you see a 16-0 vote like that, Joe, that goes against parents, they want a violent reaction. Remember, they want reactions because then they got their minions in the media ready to pounce in and then describe you like the way in the Biden administration, the way people who went and yelled at the school boards, as they should, were put on an FBI watch list.
Well, that woman is an example of why the Department of Education just got gutted, because they pushed the envelope. When you question why, that's why. That is why it was one reaction in one way and you got a reaction in the other way. So blame your legislators because you pushed too far, and this is the reaction to that push. That's point number one. Point number two, the model that a lot of Americans are basically, especially from the middle class, the upper middle class, and the wealthy in America, is they buy into a school district. This is how it works in New Jersey. They look for towns and they buy in because they believe in a public education. That has to change. What you should do is buy into a town that maybe isn't as fancy, but you're not going to pay the high taxes because you're not going to send your kids to the public school. So you live in a blue collar town and send your kids, take that money and send your kids to private school. That is how we have to change the model. Or go to a town that has a good charter school. And we have to re-look at it until they make adjustments, because that is how people like that understand things, through money. They don't care that you vote. They don't care that you scream. They're going to do what they want to do. Well, guess what? I don't have to live there. I will live somewhere else. I will not pay your high taxes because I do not believe in your education system, because it's a way to control my children and control the population. You control the population through education and through the press, the messaging. That is how you control the voting base. So you take that away from them. I don't believe in government schools, any government schools. It should be local, subsidiarity, the local government, the local people educate. Who gets it? The Orthodox Jews. When have you ever seen an Orthodox Jew go to a public school? Never. Do you know in the 50s, Amish people in Pennsylvania, men went to jail because they did not want their children. They were trying to mandate them to go to public school. They went to jail because they get it. We're the dummies. We're just go along like sheep. And then we wonder why our kids are friggin' wacko, because we allow them to be subjugated to this nonsense. Those are your answers. Move to a town that's not as expensive. It doesn't matter as long as it's safe. Sure, you don't have the zip code. Who cares? At least your kid's not getting groomed.
I was going to say, and that's a big, I will say in fairness to a lot of people, they have a trust in the public school system, because I do think that, you know, a lot of people are products of public schools. I was a product of public grammar school.
I went to public grammar school.
Right. And that's when education in the 1970s, education was still good. Public education was still good. There were rules, there was discipline. People were responsive to the people in the community. All of our teachers knew our parents, all of them, okay, to say hello to, or whatever the case might be. These teachers, we've seen videos over the last several years since we've been doing this show. These teachers, there's conference calls and Zoom calls where they're berating parents. In other words, our teachers would have never done that, ever, in a million years. So there's some trust that a lot of parents have in the public schools, and they want to give them the benefit of the doubt. But with everything going on, you can't afford to. You cannot afford to give these teachers the benefit of the doubt, or think that they're going to be doing anything other than grooming your child. That is what they're doing. There's no question about it. Their whole thing with this education, the reason why they're up in arms over the demise of the Department of Education, all has to do with indoctrinating kids on a lot of different levels, not just transgenderism, on homosexuality, on sex itself. They've been doing that for decades with sex education in the public school. Started with sex education, then it went to homosexuality. Then it went to mommy has, or Debbie has two mommies, or whatever the case might be, or who has two daddies. And now it's transgenderism. And that's all going to go away, because guess what? If the local school board is responsive to me, if I could go down there and I have more control here in my community and you do there in your community, because you don't have the federal Department of Education breathing down your neck, guess what? Those schools are going to have to be more, they're going to have to be more responsive to you.
Well, what happens is the quality of education will go down because they won't have the tax base. It all comes down to money. And that's what people have to do. I am not buying into a school system like that woman. She's like, I have to give my kid over to you. She's not going to do it, or she's going to move. And that is what people have to do. That is the local response. If you can. Now, not everyone can. And I have nothing but sympathy for families that have to deal with that. Nothing but sympathy. It's a shame in a country like this. But know this, there is thinking behind this. They know how to control the population. They know. That's why these kids go to these colleges. They come out friggin' their head is up there, you know what? All types of ridiculous.
Like those white kids, kids we saw in the clip about the voter ID.
That was a college campus. They sounded, I hate to say it, they sounded moronic. It was that was a pathetic display of higher education.
But what are they saying? What are they really saying? They're saying what they heard from their teachers and their professors.
I don't even know what they were saying. It was so dumb. It was just so dumb and pathetic and sad.
No, listen, I hear you.
I don't know what to say.
No, I know. And I mean, look, I believe there's a wave going on against this. I think not just in America, I think worldwide, if elections get straightened out, you're going to see really where the people that they always talk about, the people and democracy. It's all about democracy. You're really going to see where they are. We're going to see in Canada where they are, and we're going to probably see that very soon.
Prime Minister and the Liberal Party, I have one message. Alberta has had enough. Enough with Ottawa trampling over our provincial jurisdiction like Canada's Constitution doesn't exist. Enough with the meaningless virtue signaling climate policies that only make Canadians poorer and threaten our energy security. Enough of their screw the West, we'll take the rest mentality. Enough with their soft on crime policies that let repeat offenders roam the streets on bail. Enough with their unsafe supply, their open border policies, their censorship laws, the list goes on and on. My friends, there is only one real choice for Canada for our next Prime Minister. There is only one leader who will dismantle the nation-killing policies of the Liberals and NDP, and that, my friends, is Federal Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre.
Let's hope she's right.
Well, no, what it is, Canada is facing a similar election that we were facing. They had 8 years, the United States had basically 8 years of Obama. You had Trump inserted in there. Then they stole the election. You had Joe Biden. And then came the election of all elections. If Kamala Harris won, dude, it would have took decades to undo what they would have done. Decades. Justin Trudeau absolutely destroyed the middle class. He absolutely embraced globalism. And now you have Carney. If Carney wins, Canada for decades is done. It's done. And I'm going to tell you this. If I was Canadian, I would not stand for it. I would not stand for it. And that is, we talked about that last week. You're going to see, if Carney wins, you are going to see an outcry. I don't know how it's going to be, but Alberta, Saskatchewan, the West, what she was talking about, because their economy is going to get decimated. And I'm going to be honest with you. If it was me and my family, I am not dealing with that. Sorry, if that means I have to leave Canada, I would leave, because I am not going to be under the thumb of a government that absolutely not only doesn't represent me, but that's out to destroy me for an ideology that's not even a part of your country. That's what Carney's about. Everyone knows it. He doesn't even hide it. And if he wins, you're finished.
No, I'm going to say so. I always think sometimes that I wish the world, or there was an option. All the geniuses in the world got together, right? And you took Europe and Asia and Africa, and you made that one part of the world. And then you take North America, South America, that's the other part of the world, okay? And everybody who agrees with all the nonsense out there, transgenderism, gay marriage, and all that, you high taxes, okay? You go environmentalism, you go live over there. You could have Europe, Asia, and Africa. And everybody who agrees, not on everything, but on being normal, will live on this side, North America and South America. Go wherever you want, okay? It'd be one big state. You have that part of the world and this part of the world, and that's what we'll call it, okay? That part of the world and this part of the world. You know how many few people would live in that part of the world? You know how few people actually want that? Very few. You want to know why? See, the oligarchs wouldn't want that. You want to know why? Because regular people wouldn't want that. But they need regular people to convince those people to be slaves of them. And the other thing is, we would say, if that proposal was out there, you and I and normal people would say, go ahead, let them have Europe. Have all the Europeans that agree with us, Africans, Asians, Russians, come over here. And all of the people on this side go over there if you agree with that. Okay. We would say, great, we love that. You know what they would say? No, we don't want that, because they want to control everybody. They don't want free people, truly free people in the world. They would never go for that. They say, all right, we'll just take this side of the world with all the resources there and everything else and all the wealth they could get there. No, they want to control everybody. Give me a thought, Joe, because then we got to go.
What I would simply say is look at the outcome of their policies. Danielle Smith basically laid it out. Look at the outcome of the policies. The cities, I can't speak for Canada because I don't live in Canada. I could speak for America. And I go into New York City 3 out of the 5 working days of the week. New York City is a wreck. It's a wreck. And it's because of these policies. Yep. Look at LA. Look at Chicago. Look at our cities. Your ideas don't work. They don't work. If you look at them soberly and you step back and basically take an objective opinion of the situation, make an objective opinion of the situation, you can't vote in that direction. Right. And why you are is because you're part of a religion. It's your religion. You can't get out of it. You can't see past it. And that has to change, because I'm going to tell you right now, we started the show with this. You're losing congressional votes. You're losing electoral votes. This is America, not Canada, because people are voting with their feet. People are not going to live in a wasteland. Right. If they have a choice. And in many cases, they do. And in those cases, people move. It's that simple.
And listen, that's why the left for decades and decades and decades, that's why they've always wanted a stronger central government. And they didn't want 50 strong state governments because they wanted everybody to basically say, well, there's no difference if I live here and over there because federal law is supreme and everything else. Those things are changing. They've been changing with Donald Trump. Hopefully they change in Canada. Hopefully they get their heads about them. And things start to move in the way they're supposed to. And the people who are enemies of mankind, like that guy in that first clip, okay, the Quiet Riot guy, let's just call him the Quiet Riot guy. People who are enemies of mankind, they're not going to win. They're not going to win. They're going to lose. We want to thank you all for joining us. Just stick around. We got a Chris Cuomo clip to play for you at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Remember, we go live Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern time, X Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube. Like, subscribe, share as much as you can. We'll see you next week. Remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.
Please, listen, at what point are you going to realize that people know who Trump is and what he is and what he has done? They're not electing him to be their daddy or to date their mom or to take care of their kid or to be in business with them. They are picking him to be a disruptor of a system that they are more concerned about than any of his personal foibles. Don't you get it? I'm not sane-washing him. Who criticizes Trump more than I have? Come on with my platform. Give me a break. I'm one of the only anchors in the media who will tell you outright, personally, I've had beef with him for calling me an enemy of the state and making life hard for my wife and my kids. I had to move because of that bullshit. And he knew about it and he continued doing it anyway. That's my beef, but I still cover him fairly. Why? Because I care more about the people who voted for him and that he is now in control of again, in terms of our collective fate, than I do my personal problem with him. It's not the job to just judge people on the basis of how I feel about them. It's about what they mean in society and what the issues are for the collective, not just me. I'm not sane-washing Trump. I'm not now a Trumper. I haven't been red-pilled. It's all bullshit. But I got to be hopeful that he does better this time. I want good things for the country. I want progress. Don't you?